Today's Wednesday, and this is your Daily Drive.
Every American adult might be eligible for a booster shot within the next few days.
The FDA and the CDC appear close to making decisions. What are the final areas of concern for regulators?
I'm Ian Martinez, that's Noel King, and this is Up First from NPR News. House Democrats are launching a cross-country publicity tour to sell President Biden's spending agenda to voters.
We care about getting things done for everyday Americans.
Are the president's policies popular? Polls show mixed answers. Will a PR blitz do the trick?
And Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on a 3-country visit to Africa. He'll visit Kenya, Senegal, and Nigeria. What's his trip say about U.S. priorities on the continent? Stick with us. We get the news you need to start your day.
The following message comes from NPR sponsor Webflow. Join them online November 17th and 18th for their annual No Code conference. Hear from the makers, creators, and visionaries behind the No Code movement. Register for free at nocodeconf.com. This message comes from NPR sponsor Hyundai. With the widest range of electrified vehicles on the market, evolve your journey beyond the pump. Visit a Hyundai dealer or learn more at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for details.
2 federal health agencies are independently considering a very big question. Should all American adults get COVID booster shots?
This week, the FDA will consider a third Pfizer booster for anyone 18 and older. And at the same time, advisors to the CDC will also take up the question of whether all adults should get boosters.
NPR health correspondent Rob Stein is following this one closely. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Noel.
So 2 agencies are working on this question. What is the expectation here?
Yeah, so the FDA is expected to grant Pfizer's request to authorize its booster for any adult who's been fully vaccinated for at least 6 months. You know, Pfizer's booster had already been available to anyone 65 and older and anyone at high risk for COVID-19 because of other health problems or their jobs or, you know, their living situation. But this would officially open up eligibility to anyone 18 and older. We're talking about tens and millions of more people who could then head to CVS, Walgreens, or Walmart to get an extra shot.
And why do health officials apparently think this is necessary?
You know, booster eligibility is already so broad that something like 2 out of 3 fully vaccinated people already meet the criteria for getting a booster, and nearly 31 million people have already done just that. But still, millions more don't officially qualify, so that's prompted some people to, you know, go around the rules to get boosters. Others have held back because they don't officially qualify, and that's frustrated some officials so much that an increasing number of states like California, Colorado, New Mexico have gone their own way to make boosters available to all adults who want them. So this would make eligibility uniform nationwide.
What is the main argument, Rob, in favor of boosters, of all adults getting them?
You know, many experts say it's crucial to do whatever can be done to shore up people's immunity as much as possible, especially as evidence has been accumulating that the protection from the vaccines is waning over time and more breakthrough infections are occurring, especially as the highly infectious Delta variant has surged, and especially now in this country when the Delta variant may be starting to surge again, just as winter is coming and people are going to be traveling and getting together for the holidays. And many experts say vaccinated people should be given whatever they can to protect themselves, particularly if they're in places with lots of unmasked, unvaccinated people. And Pfizer says a study involving more than 10,000 volunteers showed that a third shot boosts protection against COVID-19 back up into the 90s.
Okay, that's some good news. But is anyone concerned about expanding eligibility regardless of that good news?
Yeah, you know, this has been the subject of really intense debate. It's quite clear that some people definitely do need boosters, like, you know, those with weak immune systems, the elderly, people with health problems, you know, that sort of thing. But the need for boosters is less clear for younger, otherwise healthy people. You know, does every 18 and 19-year-old people in their 20s and 30s really need a booster? And don't forget, the vaccine is associated with a rare side effect, a dangerous heart inflammation, especially among younger men. And many experts say we should be focusing instead on vaccinating the unvaccinated, both in this country and around the world.
So what is the chronology here? What do the next few days look like?
Yeah, so after the FDA authorizes the booster, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention weighs in, and the agencies and Pfizer's are meeting Friday to make recommendations to CDC Director Rochelle Walensky, who would then sign off on Pfizer boosters for anyone age 18 and older.
Stein. Thanks, Rob.
You bet, Noel.
Democrats in Washington are going on a kind of blitz to solve what they think of as a PR problem.
Yeah, they say their policies are still popular. They believe they're what got them elected to run Congress and the White House, but the polling does not reflect that. So Democrats are starting a nationwide push to try and sell President Biden's plans to spend hundreds of billions on everything from roads and bridges to child care and climate policy. Here's Biden's speech yesterday in Woodstock, New Hampshire.
Folks, when you see these projects starting in your hometowns, I want you to feel your life pride. Pride of what we can do together as the United States of America.
NPR congressional correspondent Kelsey Snell has been talking to Democratic lawmakers about this big push. Hey, Kelsey.
Hi there.
So why do Democrats feel the need for a sales story?
Well, they're pretty defensive. They say polls show support for policies, things like expanding health care and the child tax credit and all that infrastructure investment. But there's also polling that shows low approval ratings for Democrats as a whole and for the Build Back Better bill. So much of their political platform is really framed around this idea that Democrats are trying to fix an economy that was broken before the pandemic, one that favored only a few. And they promise to be the ones to solve all of that. But so far, many people don't seem to feel that or see that impact in their lives. Congressman who's the chair of the House Democratic Caucus, told me yesterday that it is true that Democrats struggle to send clear, chantable kind of headline messages to voters.
Sometimes we tend to speak in fine print because we care about governing. And we care about governing because we care about getting things done for everyday Americans.
So they say they're going to change that, and they're going to do 1,000 events before the end of the year, on top of over a dozen White House stops before Thanksgiving.
So, but what you're pointing to is a disconnect. People like the policies, people don't particularly like the Democrats. When you ask Democratic lawmakers about this, what do they tell you about this disconnect? Have they identified what's at the root of it?
Well, some of they say is the current economy. There are immediate economic fears, and the pandemic fears that people were talking about early on were shifting. People are talking now about price increases and about supply chain shortages and inflation, and that's all happening right now, right before the holidays. Plus, these midterm elections that are coming up are difficult. They're difficult for any party that has had full control in Washington. These midterms are usually terrible for the party in control, even when that party is getting along and really getting things done. Jeffries made another point that I thought was interesting, and that's that Democrats are trying to fundamentally alter social programs in the federal government with historically narrow majorities. He ticked off this whole list of policies Democrats enacted in the past, like Medicare, voting rights, civil rights, the Affordable Care Act, but few of those policies were immediate political victories at the polls in elections.
That's an interesting point. You're right. We are not operating in a vacuum. Republicans are out there presumably attempting to capitalize on this moment when Democrats are on the defensive.
Right. Republicans have been effective in messaging on inflation and on fears that the economy isn't moving fast enough. They've also had great success in turning the conversation away from economic issues to, conservative culture wars. But Democrats I talk to say Republicans are still the party of former President Trump and still have members who are supportive of January 6th insurrectionists, to name a few problems. So they think long-term political fight won't just be about this spending.
NPR congressional correspondent Kelsey Snell. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is starting the Biden administration's highest-level trip to Africa so far.
Much of the Horn of Africa is in disarray. Ethiopia is in the middle of a civil war. Sudan just experienced a military coup. The U.S. and Blinken want to show the U.S. is engaged in Africa and can help it on it.
NPR's Michelle Kellerman flew with Secretary Blinken, and she's with us now from Nairobi. Hi, Michelle.
Hi there, Noel.
Let's start, Michelle, with the most urgent situation, the war and accompanying humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia. Rebels from the Tigray region are threatening the capital. Both sides, but especially forces on the government side, are being blamed for massacres, including of civilians. What is Blinken hoping to do in Kenya about what's going on in Ethiopia?
Well, in short, he's trying to keep Ethiopia from imploding and spilling over into a wider regional conflict. He also wants to head off a famine in the Tigray region. So this is really, really high in a country that just a few years ago was dubbed the Hope of Africa. The U.S. wants to partner with countries in the region on this. That includes Kenya, which is worried about a spillover of this war. And that also includes the African Union's envoy, former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, who's trying to mediate. The U.S. is kind of playing a supporting role in his diplomacy. It's in part because Ethiopia has really reacted angrily to U.S. pressure, accusing it of siding with Tigray rebels. The U.S. ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, has been pushing hard back on that, pointing out that all sides have carried out atrocities. She says there are no good guys in this conflict, only victims, and that's a message we expect to hear from Blinken as well.
Okay. Another country for which there were very high hopes, Sudan, was on its way to becoming a democracy. The U.S. backed the transitional government that was a few weeks ago pushed out during a military coup. What is the U.S. planning to do about Sudan?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's trying to get countries that have some influence with the Sudanese military to use that influence and roll back this military takeover. But it's not at all clear that this is working. The military has violently cracked down on protesters. There are internet blackouts that make it hard for activists to organize. So it's really no easy task to get that transition to democracy back on track in a country that you know well.
Yes, I do. And in the meantime, amid all of this, there is China. So this week, President Biden used his summit with Xi Jinping to talk about what he calls competition with China. We know that China's been really bullish in East Africa in terms of investment. What is at stake there for the U.S. if China continues to invest in the way it has done?
Yeah, I mean, the Biden administration kind of paints this as a competition between autocracy and democracy. Blinken says he wants to show that democracies deliver to people, while China's aid often saddles countries with debt. But even today, as he met with activists in Kenya, he warned about a democratic recession in many places. He talked about misinformation, political violence, voter intimidation. He said the U.S. is hardly immune to those challenges. The Biden administration is planning a democracy summit early next month, and all the countries he's visiting here are going to be invited to that.
Given all of that, is there even time for Blinken to address some other big issues like the pandemic and like economic development?
Yeah, I mean, those are really his goals of this trip, to focus on ways the U.S. can help Africa combat climate change, contain the COVID-19 pandemic, improve trade and business opportunities for a very youthful population. But just to give you a sense of the challenges on COVID-19, for instance, the vaccination rates on the continent are very, very low, including in the places he's visiting. Kenya, Nigeria, and Senegal all have fewer than 6% of their population fully vaccinated.
NPR's Michelle Kellerman in Nairobi. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
That's Up First for Wednesday, November 17th. I'm Noel King.
And I'm A. Martinez. Start your day here with us tomorrow.
If you like Up First, you should check out NPR's Daily Afternoon podcast, Consider This. On their latest episode, President Biden had this summit with Xi Jinping, and everything seemed very respectful between Washington and Beijing. But U.S. intelligence tells a very different story. Why are America's top spies targeting China? That's on the latest episode of Consider This.
There are millions of books out there just waiting for you. But how to keep up? Introducing NPR's Book of the Day. Every weekday, we feature some of our favorite conversations with authors and writers about their latest books. You can check it out in about the time it takes to walk the dog. Happy reading.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Hyundai. Hyundai has the widest range of electrified vehicles on the market, including the first ever Tucson and Santa Fe plug-in hybrid EVs. Visit a Hyundai dealer or learn more at HyundaiUSA.com.
Big train rolling down the line makes me lonely. Sometimes I wish to ride away. Sometimes I want to ride away.
to gift meaningfully this year. Shop Etsy for handmade and handcrafted gifts from real people, not warehouses. To help you celebrate the ones you love with gifts you feel good about giving. New to Etsy? Use code EtsyGift10 at checkout to get $10 off your $35 or more. That's $10 off your first purchase of $35 or more with code EtsyGift10. Offer ends December 31st. See terms at etsy.com/terms. Give more than a gift. Shop etsy.com.
From the New York Times, I'm Michael Mubarak. This is The Daily. In Bucks County, Pennsylvania,
We would like school reopened on time with as few safety measures as possible.
what started as a group of frustrated parents organizing to push the district to reopen schools devolved over the course of a year and a half into partisan fighting over the country's most divisive cultural issues.
The treatment of our children during this pandemic has been an eye-opening to the deception and lies perpetrated by the people in this room.
Yesterday on The Daily,
COVID has broken you people, and it's disgusting.
my colleague Campbell Robertson traced the history of that battle in Bucks County.
I watch how you treat each other in here. It's disgusting.
Culminating with the resignation of the school board's only swing vote.
Common decency. You'll need to find it real fast.
Today, in part 2, as the school board elections near, what is actually happening inside the schools in Bucks, and where is all of this headed? It's Wednesday, November 17th. Okay, Kim, welcome back.
Good to be back.
When we left off last, John Gamble, the school board's most moderate figure, had just resigned out of frustration with how ugly things had gotten in Bucks County, and he used this metaphor with you to describe what the school board and parents were focused on when it came to problems facing the district. He said it's like arguing over putting new tires on a car but forgetting to put any gas in. And what he seemed to mean was, you all are fighting about all this stuff, but you're ignoring the essentials.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know if you want to say funny, maybe it's embarrassing. You know, you realize with all the talk and attention there is right now on schools, how little the actual day-to-day situation is coming up. It's like, oh yeah, school, education, what's going on there?
And what do you find in Central Bucks?
Well, everyone's back in the building. The schools opened this year full-time in person. The students came back end of August, early September. But among the people working in the schools, morale appears to be pretty low. I mean, in a lot of ways, this isn't surprising, right? You know, all over the country, we're in year 2 of COVID. Schools have borne the brunt of a lot of this. They've been having to balance health risks with taking care and educating children. This is really, really hard. But it did seem like people were surprised that it had gotten this bad in Central Bucks, because historically, the district had been really well resourced, really well functioned. It was a place where teachers really wanted to work. So I started reaching out to nurses, custodians, teachers, education assistants, staff all over the district to ask, what's school like these days? And I found a lot of people who were eager to talk with me about what was happening, but very few of them wanted to go on the record. I mean, they're seeing what's happening at the meetings. They're seeing how polarized the board's gotten. They know the political atmosphere. They're scared for their jobs, and they don't want to get dragged into all this. But there was a feeling that really wanted people to hear about and understand.
Hey, Betsy, we've talked. We haven't seen each other.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
So Betsy Coyne teaches family and consumer sciences at one of the secondary schools in Central Bucks. And she's been working in the district for almost 20 years. When you first got the offer that you were accepted of a position in Central Bucks, what was going through your head?
I thought I had won the jackpot. I had secured an amazing job. CB teachers were the best of the best, and they were exceptional. It was like winning the lottery to have a job in Central Bucks.
And you felt that for a long time, it sounds like.
I did. I was exactly where I was meant to be. And then the pandemic hit, and you felt like you could never be successful. And it was defeating.
There was the whiplash, all this back and forth from virtual to hybrid to full in person, which left so many teachers feeling like they weren't doing their jobs as well as they wanted to. And that was compounded by so many other teachers deciding their hearts were no longer in it at all. And this is pretty much at the core of what schools in Central Bucks, and really schools all over the country, are dealing with. Major staffing shortages.
My coworker went out on maternity leave. The baby came a week early, and not one certified family consumer science teacher applied for the job. Not one.
So what are you doing?
The school hired a building sub, and I had a brand new building sub come in.
And a building sub, by the way, might not necessarily be certified in the stuff you're teaching, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
They are covering classes and helping out where needed. So they hired a building sub to fill her position. And for the first month of school, I was not only writing lesson plans and planning lessons for my classes, but I was planning lessons and teaching him how to teach FCS classes so that he could teach her classes.
A lot of the other staff I talked to described their own versions of this story. They laid out a series of problems that, in their minds, are the kinds of issues that everybody concerned with schools in Central Bucks should be focused on. So, for instance, the school staff, right? The custodians, some of the nurses, the educational assistants, personal care assistants. They're working without a labor contract. They're negotiating it, but they haven't reached a deal. So that's been a big source of stress for those workers who were there the whole time last year during COVID. And all of these workers described feeling overstretched and basically at a breaking point. Because, of course, the pandemic has triggered a lot of problems in the classroom, which are bumping into the staff shortages, which is a rough combination.
Right.
So you have education assistants. They're in classrooms to help students who need special attention, to deal with these students when the teacher's trying to teach the class. But they're being shuffled around to fill in the gaps created by staffing shortages. And so those students just disrupt the class to get the attention they need. Then there are these broader behavioral issues. So nationally, there's this TikTok challenge where kids are filming themselves going into bathrooms.
Man, y'all better stop this daily food shit.
Just committing crazy acts of vandalism.
Goodness, no. Both on the toilet seats. We're not even high school.
Breaking soap dispensers, breaking sinks, going to the bathroom all over the floor.
Right now, we are about 15 students that we have already caught. And we will do everything we can to track you down, find you, and punish you as much as we can.
In Central Bucks, it got so bad they had to shut down all but one bathroom in some of the schools. And students just had to wait in line. And somebody from the school staff would sit at a desk and let the students in one by one. And obviously all this trashing of the bathrooms was something that the custodians had to deal with.
Wow.
Yeah, and everybody was just having to do much, much more work. I mean, for example, just look at nurses. So remember how as the school year was getting started, the board narrowly passed a version of a mask requirement that made it pretty easy for parents who oppose masks to file for a
Right, these are the waiver request forms that give parents, as you told us, Campbell, the option to request that their kids not wear masks based on the idea that masks might make their children's mental health worse, which it turns out is exactly what many anti-mask people think is wrong with masks.
Right, so what happens is, after that version of the mask mandate passes, parents apply for something like 1,500 mask exemptions for their kids. That's around 8% of the student population. And from what I can tell, they're pretty much always granted. But they require paperwork, and the nurses typically have to process a lot of that paperwork for hundreds of waivers. And at the same time, they're doing contact tracing for COVID outbreaks that are actually breaking out in the the schools. Last month, the 24 kids at one elementary school in the district who tested positive.
Rerouting.
And there was a big back and forth about it. You know, there were some parents of kids at the school who said, this is exactly what's wrong with the district's COVID plan, with the mask exemptions, all that. But the anti-mask mandate parents came out and said, this outbreak is being overblown to justify more COVID restrictions. And so while that back and forth is going on, the school nurses still have to deal with it.
Right.
And in some schools, nurses have been so busy with this kind of thing that they've had to limit student visits in certain hours to emergencies only. So like a kid who just doesn't feel great might have to wait.
I mean, being short-staffed affects everyone. It affects students, teachers, it affects the principals, it affects every person that walks into that building that day.
Go straight on.
So what's it like in your classroom right now, this year?
This year has been difficult. I would see that I'm seeing significant delays. Students are behind. They are a year and a half behind socially and emotionally. And I can give a great example that I teach students how to cook, and I teach cooking labs. And the first time we did a lab, we had gone through all of our prep work, we had jobs assigned, and all of a sudden I look around and everybody's just standing in the classroom. And they don't know what to do. In that moment that I looked around and I saw all of the students just standing there, I think what truly hit me was, this is real.
Yeah.
These delays, the social, emotional, the not knowing how to do cooperative work, how to work with others, all of those things became real in that moment. They don't know how to lead. They don't know how to work together as a group. And all of a sudden I realized that what I had seen or heard, or when we talk about, you know, students and what gaps are they going to have, it was in my classroom. But what I'm most concerned about is what I am hearing being discussed at the school board meetings isn't ways to help us solve our school problems.
So you've listened to some of these meetings at least?
I have listened to some of the meetings. I have followed some of the public comments. They were really defeating as an educator to watch. I got to the point I would become so upset, I would end up with migraines for 2 days.
And you're saying that what you hear being discussed at these meetings is not what your understanding of what their urgent needs are in a lot of cases.
I mean, school board, when we're fighting about politics and theory, like, none of that has a place in my classroom. And my biggest fear is that this is our new norm, that we're not going to have teachers, that we're not going to have staff, that our things are not helping what's going on in our classrooms.
And that this is just how it's going to be.
And this is how it's going to be, our new normal.
We'll be right back. When it comes to weight loss, it's easy to get caught up in habits that just aren't sustainable. Noom uses a psychology-based approach, helping you understand your mind and body for long-term results. With just 10 minutes a day, Noom helps you change your mindset so you can build healthy habits that last. 60% of users keep the weight off for a year or more. Lose the weight for good. Sign up for your trial at Noom.com/thedaily. That's NOOM.com/thedaily.
My name is Yewande Kumlafe. I develop recipes for New York Times Cooking. My Thanksgiving is a little Nigerian and a little American. I don't really make a turkey. I don't make it out loud. I'm excited to share a bunch of Thanksgiving dishes with you, like this incredible cornbread dressing that I learned to make in Baltimore, Maryland, where I went to college, and also my mother-in-law's citrus glazed sweet potatoes. Gets cooked in this brown sugar glazes the potatoes as it cooks. To be honest, this is something that I eat all year round. Thanksgiving is all about variety, and that's exactly what we give you at New York Times Cooking. From pies to pimento mac and cheese, there's so much to explore. Visit New York Times Cooking for inspiring new recipes to add to your holiday table. Find it all at nytcooking.com.
Campbell, Betsy's concern is that the school board meetings are not paying attention to the day-to-day problems of educating during the pandemic. And so as the school board elections near, I'm curious if there's any attention being paid to those issues, or is the election being waged along the same battle lines as we've been seeing in the school board meetings, which is to say, polarizing social issues dominating?
I mean, the technical answer is yes. There is some talk about these other issues. If you went to some of the candidate pages, certainly some candidates more than others, you'll find things like support for the district's overstretched staff, things they would do about mental health programs. But in so many attack ads, the issue at stake in the election is clear. Parental authority over what goes on in schools, above all when it comes to masks and curriculum. And are those materials focusing on these other issues? No. That's kind of John's whole point. As the school board fights have been heating up, there's very much a sense that control of the board means control over the future of these more divisive issues that the board and parents have been fighting over for the past year or so. Control over COVID policies, control over school curriculum. Remember, at this point, the board is basically split, right? They keep having all of these 5-4 decisions, and with 5 of the 9 seats up for election this year, that means control of the board. So everyone involved in these battles is feeling like there's a lot riding on the outcome.
And it would seem that there is,
for sure,
in this environment.
For sure. So there's way more attention on these races than ever before, and what we start to see around this time in this year's school board campaign is something very new for local school board races, which is huge injections of personal cash into the races. Actually, one person in particular. Are we all good? Okay.
Great, give it a go.
Paul Martino.
And who is Paul Martino?
Paul Martino is a venture capitalist. He's known in part for investing big time in sports betting, and he's also a self-described hardcore Republican. His past political spending is reflective of that. He's given money to GOP candidates, he's given money to Project Veritas. He actually described himself as a mentor figure to its founder, James O'Keefe.
Who is a very provocative figure in the right-wing media world.
Oh, sure. But what's fascinating about him is that he kind of bridges these two worlds, big money national politics and Central Bucks schools, because he's also a parent with 2 kids in the district. Past few months, that's where he started to put his focus. Thanks for doing this. So I was in Central Bucks last week. Obviously, elections are gearing up there, and was interested in just the whole dynamics. I mean, it's pretty unprecedented. The campaign, the movement that y'all were doing there, and wanted to get a sense of what's behind it. So you're a venture capitalist. You have been politically involved in the past, donating money to national figures and national issues. Why are you doing this in local school board races now?
The prior experience in national donating, I think, is largely red herring to this. Meaning that, yes, I've been involved in national causes in the past, but my involvement here at the school board level is just a pissed off parent. I mean, we're not afraid to admit that. We just thought our local school board dropped the ball, getting our kids back to school, and there was something that we needed to do about it.
So by Martino's account, this didn't start as the latest political opportunity. It started with him being incredibly frustrated with the administration at his kid's school.
And so it became clear that by applying political pressure to the school administrators and to the school board members, that they couldn't hide and go, oh, this is scary, oh, I don't know how to open the schools. And once we did that and saw that it worked, and we got Central Bucks open in just a couple weeks where other school stays closed the entire calendar year, We said, wow, let's go teach some other people across the state how to do this.
So in July of this year, he starts a PAC and calls it Back to School PA. He calls it a single issue PAC.
Go straight
that
on.
Single issue is keeping. And how it works is his PAC gives money to other PACs at the district level. And he tells those other PACs, I want this money to go to school board candidates who will support my issue and keep the schools open. And then those PACs are supposed to donate to candidates who'll do just that. So this PAC, Back to School PA, starts giving out money all over the state, around the Philly suburbs, around Pittsburgh, all these places in between. And by October, it's given out around $700,000 statewide.
Wow, that's real money, and I'm guessing that is a lot more money than we're used to seeing in local school board campaigns.
It's a lot of money, but what may be most new and noteworthy is that so much of the money sloshing around in these races is coming from one guy. Typically, a lot of the money in school board races comes from small donors, though, the local party will give some money, the teachers union sometimes. Well, this year in Bucks County, just one local PAC had put $50,000 into the races in the county by mid-October. And only that came from Martino.
Wow.
Yeah. In another district in the Philly suburbs that I looked at, Martino donates $10,000 to the local PAC supporting his candidates. The total sum that PAC raised was something like $10,420.
So in some cases, Martino is essentially the sole funder of the PAC.
As of mid-October, yeah, that seemed to be true. And in that one donation he made in the district I was just talking about, in one fell swoop, he doubled what the opposing candidates raised altogether, with mostly smaller donations. So all told, Martino puts $500,000 of his own money into that $700,000 pool of money that his PAC gives out. So it totally remakes a lot of these local elections, where in the past, very little money might have been spent by any candidates. Now, for these suburban school board races, you have professional campaign flyers, negative mailers, these sleek attack ad websites.
Right, the best local school board campaign that money.
Right. And of course, when these well-financed campaigns, wage their attacks, the other side fights back. And so these anonymous attack sites start spouting up on the other side. And it all just ramps up very fast.
And Campbell, what is the criteria to get this Paul Martino funding? Is it really as simple as whether or not the candidate supports reopenings?
Well, here's where it gets fascinating. The short answer is yes, that really does appear to be it.
Keep left.
But of course, as we've been talking about, as the school board fight has become polarized and politicized, we've seen the reopening battles evolve into something more symbolic. And so what you see is that often a candidate supporting reopenings is now synonymous with a candidate who opposes mask mandates or is running on an anti-CRT platform.
Right, these all link, so there's often a kind of shared platform that unites the reopening candidates, and it's not just about reopening.
Right, so in Central Bucks, all of the candidates that Martino ended up supporting ran on a platform against mask requirements, really parental choice, which is mask optional. That was the party line. And when I looked at other candidates that Martino was supporting in the Philly suburbs outside of Bucks, they were really emphasizing the same themes. But what's interesting is how Martino talks about his feelings on these other issues. Mask mandates. What's your thinking on mask mandates?
If we need masks
Go
for in-person
straight on.
education, great. If your local administrator says that you don't need masks, that's fine. I don't have an opinion on the matter. I think the mask discussion has become completely overblown. It's some sort of weird litmus test. Are you anti-science or are you... Whereas I don't think that's what the key issue is. If the local school administrators and or local health directors say we don't need a mask because this metric, and this metric are where they are, great. If they say we do, no problem. I'm not anti-mask. I'm not pro-mask though. I think there is a group out there that is pro-mask. Like, I need to have a mask on no matter what I do at all times, even if the case counts are 0. And so I'm neither pro nor anti. And I think this has really become a complete red herring in the discussion.
Well, I see what you're saying, that the focus is in-person education, whatever it takes to get that, right? agnostic on what it takes, but that's what it takes. The candidates you're bankrolling, particularly in the Philadelphia region, North Penn, Bucks, and are almost all anti-mask mandate. So it's one thing to say that masks aren't important. I mean, they're a distraction, but these are the candidates you're giving money to, right?
Again, I truly feel that this is the secondary issue. There's a group of people on one side that want to be in person, and there's a group of people on the other side that are cautious to a fault. And I think that safety to a fault, cautious to a fault, has become the kind of primary thinking, as opposed to, this is a hard problem, what onus do we need to put back on us as administrators to solve the problem? And so I want to have people on our school board not who want safety to a fault. That has really, I think, been the wrong kind of ideology to have. And that's the break between the two sides on this issue.
I see what you're saying, but this is sort of the trick here, right? That you're talking about that you want a very practical, cold-eyed take on how can we get people back in schools. You know, under modified quarantine, part of it's based on the fact that people wearing masks, right?
That's correct.
So this is not ideological. Let's just get kids back in school. The candidates you're bankrolling are both almost universally, at least in the Philadelphia region, strongly against mask mandates. I mean, they all, you see many flyers race theory out of our schools. Is it impossible to be against school closures and not be also against critical race theory and mask mandates and other things? I mean, why do those things align?
That is absolutely the case. Look, I can run you through some of the numbers, Campbell. About a third of our candidates we estimate are actually on the Democrat side of the fence. Less so in Philadelphia. I must admit that is a true statement, that in Montgomery and Bucks County, it's turned out that the candidates we had backed have been more Republican than statewide. Statewide, though, looks like it's about 30-35% are Democrats, and they have an eclectic set of views on those issues. Some of our groups are highly progressive groups in inner cities that are pro-CRT. We are not making a statement about those issues. We're showing up to those districts that other people didn't pay attention to, saying, your schools need to be open because guess what? Your kids are falling even further behind. How can I help you? And so no, I don't think that there needs to be a lockstep. You are anti-CRT and you are blank. I don't think that needs to be the case at all. And if it turns out that in Bucks and Montgomery County, it lined up that way more often than not, that is a coincidence as opposed to a design goal.
A coincidence as opposed to a design goal.
Yeah. And again, to a degree, this may be true in the sense that, as we've talked about, the reopening issue has always had this sort of natural conservative bent. And it's true that Martino's given funding to PACs that support some Democrats, including a PAC in Harrisburg called Blackwall PA, which says it fights against racism, injustice, and voter suppression. But even he says that only about a third of the candidates he's supporting are Democrats. In some surveys that news outlets in Pennsylvania have done, have found the number significantly lower than even. I mean, the candidates in Central Bucks who were funded by Martino's PAC were Republicans. I reached out to PACs in other districts in Bucks County to see where their money was going, and the ones I found were backing almost all Republicans too.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's a coincidence, who's to say? But I think the more interesting question is, why is Paul Martino putting $500,000 into school board races if all he cares about is reopening and the schools have reopened? So you don't feel yourself aligned that way on those cultural issues? I mean, I know you've been, I think you described yourself in the Bucks County paper as a, quote, hardcore Republican.
Yes.
But again, that is, you consider that completely divorced from the mission of this?
Absolutely, and I get a lot of flack for this, but I can explain it to you quite simply. I have donated to causes in the past. If I wanted to create an anti-CRT PAC, I would have created the anti-CRT PAC and we'd be on the phone talking about that. I created Back to School because that was the issue that I thought was most important to my kids, maybe your kids, other kids throughout the state of Pennsylvania. We created it bipartisan. I've got 4 employees on staff. 2 of them are Democrats, 2 of them are Republicans. Like, I didn't go and hire those people because I was really closetedly doing an anti-CRT pack. If I wanted to do an anti-CRT pack, and maybe one day I will, I'll fund it and I'll come on your podcast and tell you why I did that. I mean, the goal of this one's pretty clear, even though people think I got some other ulterior motive.
So schools in Bucks have been open to some degree for a year, and they're open this year.
Yes.
There was some talk, about potential closures, but it seems like the salience of the school closures is fading. Do you have higher aspirations with this? Like, do you see further goals of keeping this going beyond school openings?
So I did not. That, again, not the plan. It was make sure. And so that was why we started. But now that we've actually got a statewide, we backed packs in, I think, 25 of the 64 counties. We got submissions from 200 packs across the entire Commonwealth. What do we do next? We almost by accident built a completely bottom-up, grassroots, parents-based organization in 6 months. That is not an easy thing to do. So no, I don't know what we're going to do next. But Campbell, I promise you there will be something next, because this is a very interesting asset we've built. We need to figure out how to empower these parents forward, and I don't know what that answer is yet. Happy to come on your podcast next time when I do know.
So Paul is saying he does have further political aspirations for this movement he's helped start, and finding out what those are yet.
Yeah, that's what he's saying, and I kept trying. Where are you in discussions of where to take this next? Given,
we got a lot of ideas.
What are some of your ideas?
So Campbell, sorry, I'm gonna have to politely decline on that one. I'm happy to get a hold of you soon enough. You have a lot of ideas though, and again, I'm not trying to be cute. I'll tell it to you as the venture capitalist in me. The companies I've started that have been successful have usually been successful when you go swim in the right pond. You don't really know how to swim, but you know you're in the right pond. You know you've got the right idea. And so it turned out, I think, this is the happy accident here as well. It turned out that activating a grassroots set of parents would be a potentially new, powerful. I had no idea that was going to be the case. And so now I got to go play the game the way I do as a startup. I now have this interesting asset. What would be a great way to deploy that? And that's the question I'm now working with. And that's quite frankly how we've scaled startups in the past. And I feel bizarrely qualified to try and answer this question, and you'll hear from us soon.
But the basic mission that I'm hearing, in other words, the thing that keeps it going beyond school closures, is greater parental power in schools?
I think so. I think the core of this is that we woke up parents who were apolitical in the past to that the school boards were very fundamentally important to their family because it was their kids' education. And so certainly that would then mean other things like curriculum, etc. downstream. But having a network of activated, previously apolitical parents, that's a pretty interesting group of people who didn't used to show up. These aren't your every 2-year voters. These aren't people who probably even knew there were odd-year elections. And it's exciting to see those kinds of people be active for the first time.
Turn left.
Yeah, well, this is where you started your reporting, right? This idea that in an important political state like Pennsylvania, a swing state, if you can really find a way to mobilize a large group of voters, that can make a very big difference at both the local and the national level. Let's be honest, it can make or break a presidential campaign. And what I hear Paul saying is, I found those voters, and it turns out that what motivates them is schools.
Yeah. So the kind of essential question here, the one that we've been kind of circling around this whole conversation is the whole reopening issue a Republican Trojan horse? Have people like Martino seized on genuine concerns that parents have about school closures and used that to build a political movement? And could it become a playbook for winning all kinds of elections, whether that's across Bucks County, across the state of Pennsylvania, even across the country? But then meanwhile, as we've talked about, the schools have real issues that need addressing, like practical issues that some people like John Gamble and some of the teachers and staff are worried are getting totally overshadowed by these battles over COVID policy and cultural stuff. So I wanted to know what Martino thought about these other school issues that don't lend themselves so readily to politics. So at the same time that there is, I think, a very valid debate over the COVID mitigation procedures, you know, as well as districts nationwide. I mean, there are a lot of issues, right? There's very severe staffing shortages. Can't get substitutes.
Right.
There are very few education aides per student to the degree that they want them. Do you see those as big issues too? Are those part of what your movement is addressing?
So we are a single issue PAC focused exclusively on the schools being open. Those issues related to staffing levels are of course related to our primary purpose. But we are not making statements about curriculum. We're not getting involved in the school bus shortage. That's not the kind of stuff that we're focused on. To the extent they make it impossible to have in-person education, those are things we focused on. The staff shortages in particular. Over in the Pittsburgh districts that led to the late opening here in 2021, for example. We paid a lot of attention to that, supported a lot of groups in the Pittsburgh and Allegheny County areas that really said, look, enough is enough. You not only weren't open last year, we got a whole year to get ready for this. Let's solve the problem.
Is it frustrating? I mean, we talked a little bit about the challenges that schools are facing that are not lockdown, not even COVID related, you know, staffing shortages. Is it frustrating that as someone who wants good schools for your kids and who has the will to spend a lot of money on it, that the only outlet to do that you see right now is funding school board races? Is it frustrating that there are these resources and it's hard to figure out a way to use them to make schools better outside of politics?
We have a very blunt instrument, which is every 2 years about half the school board seats are up. And it turns out in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, school boards are remarkably powerful. And so, like a presidential election in the U.S., it's a blunt instrument, and every couple of years you get to show up. I'd be all for a more direct version of democracy where there could be oversight, balance, checks, etc. But right now, this is what we got. We got school boards every 2 years.
So Martino's response is, the way school boards work and the way schools work, we fund the schools. Private citizens can't just give them the resources that they need. And in terms of the mental health issues that the students are battling, the thing that Betsy Coyne was talking about, the behavioral issues, that, he would say, is exactly what motivated him to create this single issue PAC. That the damage done to kids by closing schools was so great that anyone involved should be out of their seat on the board, and right now, all that should matter is that a candidate wouldn't let that happen again. Again, though, the central question is, when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on school board candidates, and your litmus test is one issue, what else is that money supporting? Who is that money supporting when you focus on just that one issue? I mean, one of the candidates in Central Bucks who got Martino's PAC support, she was at one meeting and was talking about demonic adults brainwashing and recruiting children. But she had the right stance on reopening, so she got the back. So now you have this slate across the Commonwealth of candidates moving on to other fights in the future. Do you see this as a source of Republican strength in future elections?
I don't think I've ever thought about that way, but given that there are more Republicans than Democrats, you're going to have to imagine that the issues are going to be more right-aligned in the future. I would love it if we could get to a spot where we did left-right issues with a statewide bipartisan group. Again, if I wanted to start a Republican PAC, I'd go start a Republican PAC. I've got this unique amalgam of people who wouldn't otherwise be on the same team. It seems like there's something good we can do with that. And if all it does is now devolve into a single Republican issue, haven't I squandered an opportunity, Campbell?
Well, I think that depends on how you view the opportunity, because a Republican PAC would get the same old Republican activists,
right,
where getting apolitical people involved with pursuing Republican goals, even if it is Republican PAC, that seems like a pretty big victory politically, no?
as I said, and I got to tell you, that's more accident than genius, right? And so we've got that group of people, apolitical people, who decided that their kids' education was time for them to step up. And again, turning that just into a recruiting zone for Republican candidates strikes me as a misuse of the asset.
But the actual use of the asset is still under discussion.
That's what we got to figure out. I mean, we got a big election on Tuesday. We got a lot of races to win, and we now know that there's probably going to be life after this, and it's my job to figure that out.
Mr. Martino, I appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time.
Very good, Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, November 2nd, Republicans won 3 out of the 5 open seats in the Central Bucks School Board elections, cementing their control of the board. And across Bucks County, Republicans won race after race for local office, an outcome that many observers attributed to the turnout of voters motivated by the races for school board. On the same night, the Republican candidate for governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, won his race by making schools and what he called the empowerment of to his campaign.
We proved in Virginia that the people can stand up and vote for someone who stands up for us. People are attending the school board.
Last week, the Central Bucks School Board met for the first time since the election.
Diversity, education. Oh, transgender. He has the right to go into the woman's bathroom and rape her. Then they send the student to another school.
You need to address it. You need to stop. I'm going to have you removed if you cannot be respectful.
I'm a little shaken right now with everything that just taken place. I came here to actually say thank you. But, my God, where did I move? Where did I move? To this horrendous. I'm going to raise my children here. Please,
We'll be right back.
This podcast is supported by Google. Consideration for how photos depict people of color. When she was younger, photographer Kennedy Carter rarely saw images of anyone that looked like her.
Folks with darker skin complexions deserve the ability to look back at an image and see themselves pictured in the truest way possible.
With Real Tone on the Pixel 6, Google has created the world's most inclusive camera, which highlights the nuances of all people. To learn more, visit g.co/pixel/realtone. Most inclusive camera based on the survey conducted by Google using pre-production devices in early September 2021.
Here's what else you need to know today. The Times reports that federal regulators plan to authorize booster shots of Pfizer-BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine as early as today. That would expand the number of Americans eligible for a third shot by tens of millions and begin making a booster shot a standard part of vaccinations. Because regulators allow Americans to mix and match boosters, every adult could get a Pfizer booster, no matter which original vaccine they used. Moderna is expected to seek a similar authorization for its booster in the coming weeks. Today's episode was produced by Eric Krupke and Jessica Chung. It was edited by Lisa Tobin, contains original music by Miriam Lozano, Rochelle Bonja, Corey Schreppel, and Dan Powell, and engineered. Our theme music is by Jim Grunberg and Ben Lansford of Wonderly. That's it for the Daily. I'm Michael Barr. See you tomorrow.
This podcast is supported by Bank of America and their original podcast, That Made made all the difference? What if where you were born inspired your life's work? Join host Alicia Burke as she speaks with Catherine Coleman Flowers about growing up in the rural South and how it helped drive her to become one of America's top advocates for environmental justice. From clean water to climate solutions, Catherine has fought tirelessly for the place she calls home. And you can hear all about her life on the Bank of America original podcast That Made All the Difference, wherever you get your podcasts. What would you like the power to do?
Hershey's sitting around waiting until next year's Halloween? No, Hershey's is not sitting around. They just launched the Reese's Thanksgiving Pie, which is not a Reese's peanut butter cup. No, it's a Reese's peanut butter cup pie. It's like a dream wrapped in a wish. It's 9 inches wide. It is. They took a Reese's cup and blasted it with a honey I blew up the kids contraption. But here's the thing, Reese's only made 3,000 of these 9-inch wide adorable pies. We're wondering, did the CEO just buy them all up because all out? Yeah, which is probably why Hershey's did this in the first place. Everyone sold out in less than 2 hours. So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Reese's? It's not a long-term new revenue stream for Reese's. It's a one-off gimmick for people. Yeah, the real goal for Hershey's here was dozens of news headlines on Reese's, which they got from the New York Post, Fox Business, USA Today, CNN, and dozens of other publications. The result, Jack, what did they get? All people are talking about is Reese's launched a peanut butter pie, which sold out in hours. And the PR from those pies is worth way more than the sales of those pies. For our second story, Lucid is a publicly traded car company founded by an ex-Tesla engineer, nicknamed by some as a Tesla killer. Well, Lucid just won a Car of the Year from Motor Trend. Must be nice. Not electric car of the year, not new car of the year, car of the year. Okay, listen to the superlatives on this company. First of all, it has the most range of any electric car. 520 miles on one charge. And it's got the fastest charge of any electric car. It goes from 0 to 300 miles of range in just 20 minutes of charging. And it's the highest priced of all the electric cars. The most expensive Tesla is $149,000. Lucid's number one in price tag. So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at potential Tesla killer Lucid? The U.S. car industry used to be the big three. Now it's 3 groups of snackers. Jack and I just noticed that we now have 3 distinct families of 3 U.S. car. Big 3. Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, formerly known as Chrysler. Yeah, mainly gas-powered pickups and SUVs. All 3 of these companies are worth between $65 billion and $90 billion, so pretty close. But now you've got the electric big 3 with Rivian, Lucid, and Tesla. All 3 are electric, all now delivering cars, all now valued at more than the Detroit big 3. But you also have the small 3, Nikola, Lordstown, and Workhorse. This is another new thing. They're all electric. They all recently went public, and these are all 3 car companies struggling mightily. Those 3 are worth $5 billion. So America used to be the Detroit Big 3 for over 50 years. But now we've also got the electric Big 3 and the electric small 3. For our third and final story, you're probably worried about your holiday shopping. Walmart doesn't want you to be. No, they turned their earnings report into a holiday ad for Walmart. More on that story in Snacks Daily, our 5th. Spotify, Jack and I, we'll see you there.
You're tuned in this next minute. We spoke to the lawyers and we gotta get something legal out the way. This next you just heard ain't food, it's air candy. They don't reflect the views of the Robert Hood family. It's all informational, just so you know. We're not recommending any securities. Nope. It's not a research report or investment advice. Not an offer or sale of a security. Right. Snacks is digestible. Business news for you. Robert Hood Financial, LLC, member FINRA.
start it off?
I'm gonna start with the best thing though. It's Wednesday. We got to get over the hump. I'm gonna start with what the best thing of the week is. My best thing and worst thing came from friends in my text chats. So first one, shout out to my boy Brian. He sent me the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer last night. It looks so dope, so fun. Doc Ock is in it, and I like what they did. They have Alfred Puss in the previous like Spider-Man 2 from years ago. He's back playing it. Doctor Strange is in it. It looks exciting. It looks like it's a lot of consequences. So that's my best thing for the week.
I want to get a sneak peek at your like group chat. Do you have like a Marvel group chat? Because I feel like my partner has one. Oh, okay.
Nah, my friends just into stuff. You know what I mean? So we just share. I'm not like a Marvel. Hey guys, this is just a Marvel chat. Nah, this is
What's
just
that voice?
my friends are into a bunch of stuff. Hi guys, this is the Marvel chat. Y'all know that I'm in the comics and I'm in the Star Wars and Marvel and all that, but we don't have a special chat for. We just into a bunch of stuff. But I'll tell you about my worst thing of the week came from Natasha, and I just saw this morning. Did y'all see Lisa Ray said that Halle Berry is bad in bed? She has this show
No, I didn't. How did she know?
online. Yes, this is what she said. She literally said, that's what I read. That's what I heard. That's what I saw. It feels like hate to me. And then she came back and tried to clear it up later. But she said that she read, that's what she was told, that Halle Berry was bad in bed.
Yeah.
Worst thing of the week. That's whack. I don't like that. I agree.
To me, I'm like, you're a grown woman. Why are you spreading these rumors? It kind of feels like almost like you want attention right now. Because, you know, when's the last time that we spoke about her? I don't know. Right now you're making yourself relevant.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
And it's because Halle Berry is getting a lot of shine right now, okay, with the album that she produced with Cardi B, and you know all the great things that she's
that
doing.
Soundtrack.
Yes, for the film. Lisa Ray is being a
Get out of here with that.
Yeah.
Get out of
Don't like it at all. Kat, you got something? What's yours? What's your best and worst?
Okay, so the best thing for me this week is my new menstrual cup.
I've seen that
who
before.
menstruate, you know, we typically know people to use tampons. Mia Bell is raising her hand like me. I menstruate. You know, we use tampons, we use pads, but both of those things aren't necessarily good for the environment, right? Like you throw them out, they don't really decompose, they're not good for you. You know, there's all these toxins that are in tampons, maybe specifically. And recently I started using this menstrual cup. You know, it's like smaller than the size of my palm. You like fold it, you put it up in there, and it kind of collects all of the blood. When I heard about this the first time, like years ago, I was like, oh, heck, sounds ridiculous. And now I'm like, why did I wait this long? You can reuse the cup, you wash it. You know, you do have to get like very personal with yourself. In your nooks and your crannies and all that stuff. But I feel very like empowered now. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be using tampons or pads like ever again. I feel a lot safer using this. It got me. It definitely got me. I suggest for anybody who menstruates, give it a try. Just give it a try.
I got a friend, believe it or not, and I went to the store with them to search and find these. So like that's how I know about them. And she said it's been way better for her body because tampons actually weren't responding well to her body over time. So I'm actually familiar with these, and she swears by these herself.
Okay, so I need to try it.
Okay, let's get into the worst thing of the week. And the worst thing for me this week is Jake Gyllenhaal.
What do you do? I'm not up on this. What happened?
What didn't he do? So Taylor Swift's Red album, Taylor's version, you know, came out, and I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but now I'm like, yo, I want to do all my research. I want to become a Taylor Swift fan. The Easter eggs, you know, especially in her music videos and her lyrics. So, you know, Taylor and Jake had dated in the past. There's like about a 10-year difference, and in this music video, it was almost like a short film. She's kind of, you know, leading people to believe in all these things that could have possibly happened in the relationship, how he was mean to her, you know, how he broke her heart. Bro, the Taylor Swift fans go so hard. Apparently, there was some kind of party, and they put up on the screen like all these images of Jake Gyllenhaal crying, and and they were playing Taylor Swift's music, kind of being like boo to him, you know, like we don't.
Fair.
Bro,
Fair to him. How can
hold
he
up.
be the worst thing of the week? We don't. This is her side of the story.
I'm so dead.
Nah.
Oh well, she's the one who got the album. Yo, I gotta mention this.
Nah.
There's this one lyric that she says about how like he kept her scarf. You know, like I want my you. To this day, you still have my scarf. And Dionne Warwick got into this. She tweeted and she said, "If that young man has Taylor's scarf, he should return it." And I'm just like, when you get Dionne Warwick involved, I'm like, that's a lot right there. So worst of the week, Jake Gyllenhaal out here breaking hearts.
Not fair. Unfair.
Oh my gosh.
Mia Bell, what you got?
Bell.
What you got?
I'm gonna start with the worst because I don't want to end on a bad note. But of course,
I'm with
everything that's going on with Astro World, the updates are really killing me, especially with, you know. And just hearing the story develop, seeing more videos, it's just so like, you know, it really hurts the heart. Yeah, it's tragic.
And then we hear about Lil Uzi Vert, and then he seems like completely tone deaf to this situation. It's a tough one.
I'm hoping people learn from that. You know, that's my biggest hope. Is like we don't want all these lives to be taken, all these people to be affected, for people to continue doing what they've been doing. Like you need to change the way you conduct yourself.
There are going to be some changes. There are going to be some changes. That I promise.
For sure.
That I promise you.
Yeah.
What's your best thing?
We're going to be grieving this situation for a while, but the best thing, for sure, has to be Shaka Khan and Auntie Stephanie Mills. They're going head to head versus it's going down tomorrow. I'm going to be in my auntie bag.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I love
Who are you rooting for?
Classics only. Listen, Shaka Khan.
You got to pick one.
That is my girl. Ain't nobody. Okay? Love me better.
I think Stephanie Mills is going to surprise people because more people know off the top Shaka Khan songs, but I think them in the verses, you're going to be like, wait a minute. I think Stephanie Mills is... They matched them up for a reason.
Turn right.
They matched them up for a reason.
To find out.
Don't sleep now. Don't sleep.
Okay.
Love some Shaka though. Don't get me wrong.
Okay, cool. Y'all, as always, we're gonna post what's in our rotation and also our best and our worst of the week on our Instagram at the Get Up Morning Show. So be sure to check that out. We gotta get into this pop culture story. Y'all remember JoJo, the singer? Like she had that really popular song, Leave, Get Out, and was just
She
like
still has those songs.
She does. Great vocalist. You know, she was really big on YouTube. She posted this like hypothetical yesterday about going viral in the music video. She said, "Do you think finding a way to make your music go viral is a fair, creative, effective, efficient marketing strategy proposal from a record label asking for a friend?" Ooh, sounds a little bit shady. Tinashe also replied and said, "Any proposed strategy that relies on you making anything go viral is literally lazy."
Let me tell you something. I got a whole lot of thoughts on this, but before I get these thoughts off, Coi Leray also chimed in. You know, she's gonna be on the show in a minute. She said going viral and paid advertising is two different things, but that's just my opinion. Best way to go